Good evening and welcome to Protocol, a Lions University course brought to you by the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum. My name is Lion Budwall and I would like to welcome you to this evening's webinar and remind you that we are recording this session for those who cannot participate live or for anyone wishing to review the material at a later time. Once we begin, you may be asked to respond to a question or give some input, or you may have a question yourself, and this can be done either by typing your question in the question pane, which is on the panel along the right side of your screen, or by raising your hand or clicking on your hand so you can be unmuted, which then will give you the opportunity to share verbally with the entire group. And assisting in the background tonight, again, is Wendy Kane, who will be monitoring these areas and also handling some other things for tonight's session. So we'd like to thank Wendy for helping out. And again, Wendy, anytime you need to jump in, and feel free to do so. Protocol is course number 231. It's an elective course for the Lions University Master's Program. And the Master's Program is designed to help Lions lead on the district level. The Master's Program also involves the completion of the 10 required courses, which are shown on the left side of your screen, and at least 5 of the elective courses, which are shown on the right side of your screen. This page is the Lions University website at lionsuniversity.org, and this slide shows a page in the bachelor's program, actually, listing all the courses offered in that particular level. The master's program page would have a similar information, but would include the courses of the master's program. And if you were to click on any of the courses listed on this page, you would then be taken directly to that particular course page, giving you all the details for that course, along with a link to register for the course and links to any course handouts that might be available, and also the course quiz. We even have a calendar page you can click on to see what courses are scheduled in the weeks and months ahead. This slide shows what a course page typically looks like. It lists the course name and number, gives a description of the course, shows you who the faculty member is, and gives you the links to register for the class and any course materials. If you haven't already done so, you will have to create a separate username and password to get in to register for the course and have access to the quiz. After participating in the webinar or watching the video of the webinar, you can then click on the areas where it's marked as completed with that red arrow, the tab at the bottom of the page, and you will then be allowed to go a little further and take the quiz. When you complete the quiz and submit your answers, you will instantly be given the results, so you'll know how you did. You can then click on the My Account tab near the top of the page and see a first-hand view of the courses you've completed in both the master's and the bachelor's level on each one of those programs. In this particular page on the left-hand side, you'll see the bachelor program courses in green that have been satisfactorily completed, and all the other courses that have not been taken as of that time. Our faculty member this evening is Lion Dennis Vanette. He's a past district governor who comes to us from District A15 and Multiple District A, Ontario, Canada. Past District Governor Dennis has been active on the district and multiple district level as a presenter, and we're very pleased to have him with us this evening. So welcome, Lion Dennis, and the webinar is all yours.
Good evening, Lion Bud. Good evening, Lions. Again, as was introduced, my name is Dennis Vanette, and I am the immediate past district governor of District A15. Over my years in cabinet, I have examined and observed effective and ineffective, or should I say attentive and courteous protocol being executed. So one of my pet peeves is just that, the poor attention that is given to protocol. Now tonight, we will make an effort to give you some tools and some knowledge so that you may go forward and be what I consider a protocol pro. This is an art and a science, and as we will see, we'll see that protocol, as someone once said, is all about respect. So first of all, let's examine our objectives for this evening. We'll provide a reference for both formal and informal protocol, and I'll try to explain a little bit of that later. We'll provide resources such as handouts for the effective delivery of protocol. We'll encourage the use of protocol, and will allow for certain local norms to be reflected in the application of protocol. So, what is protocol? Well, Webster's dictionary defines it as the official procedure or system of rules governing affairs of state or diplomatic occasions. As Lions, we have official, if you will, occasions, as well as meetings, venues, and opportunities by which we need to take the opportunity to recognize the need to follow official procedure and some rules. So though this is Webster's dictionary definition, I prefer to look at it in a slightly more general and, say, liberal fashion. I guess a more liberal definition is a set of behaviors that give due respect and recognition to individuals or institutions based on a recognized and accepted norm. So let's take a look at these words. Behaviors. It's essentially the manner by which we extend courtesy, respect, attention to both individuals and institutions. It recognizes the individual and institutions for what they are in an orderly fashion. It also is based on recognized and accepted norms. And those norms, although sometimes are preset, they tend to be, I wouldn't say the word flexible, they tend to be malleable. They tend to be adjustable depending on circumstance. And I'll try to explain that a little bit in the area which we will cover under introductions. At this point, let's speak about when and where is protocol appropriate. Well, protocol is recognized as appropriate where it is considered both essential as well as appropriate. It's a hard definition to come by, but I'm going to give you 3 instances by which you should recognize that proper protocol should be followed. One of them is at formal gatherings. Now, this may be anniversaries, this may be other times by which Lions gather, whether with or alone, or with individuals as leaders of their community, such as governmental agencies, diplomats, at official meetings such as your cabinet meetings, your zone meetings and otherwise, and with individuals whose presence simply suggests that additional courtesy and care is required. Now at this point we're going to turn to the formal gatherings. An example of a formal gathering is a guest presentation. You're expecting somebody to come to either your club or your district and make a presentation. Now protocol would suggest that the individuals should be properly introduced, and that introduction should include more than simply the name and the position held by the individual. If possible, to give a little bit more information that would highlight the value that this individual brings to both the event and the presentation. Your club anniversaries are another example of a formal gathering, which are not officially a meeting. They're more an opportunity by which you may bring individuals such as your local governmental agencies, your mayor, your councilors, various other individuals to come and celebrate your anniversary. It's important at that time that an orderly set of protocol be applied to those venues. Celebrations where out-of-district officers are expected. It is generally acceptable that within a club, protocol need be extended only in more formal venues. However, when you have out-of-district officers, it's especially important to consider that at these gatherings, people may be completely unaware of the individual. They may be unaware of the background, and they may also, these individuals, unfortunately, may be completely unaware of the history behind many of the individuals within your own club or district. So extending protocol to both the individuals and that are visiting, as well as to your own members, helps make people familiar with the various individuals and the positions they may have held and the different venues that where they may have encountered them. So let's consider that at formal gatherings, this is a perfect opportunity for us to apply the rules of introductions and protocol. Now, at meetings, we have our official meetings. It's extremely important that at cabinet meetings and zone and region meetings, that individuals, as well as seating arrangements, as well as other courtesies, are adhered to. And we will go into those in further detail at some point. At club meetings, as I indicated, if you have guests that are not traditionally in attendance at your club, then extending them the opportunity to be properly introduced and to introduce others is a kind gesture that is indeed recognized as appropriate in those venues. Now, a formal gathering, any formal gathering, where recognition of individuals or institutions is appropriate. An example of this, when you invite members of, say, a diabetes association or of other organizations affiliated with our Lions organization, such as the Lions Foundation of Canada in Canada or Leader Dogs in Michigan, those are individuals that indeed should be part of the introductions and recognized in an orderly manner. In a sense, that's extending proper protocol in properly introducing those individuals. So meetings are an extremely important venue to exhibit knowledge and the execution of protocol. All right, let's go on to special events. Now, with individuals whose presence suggests additional attention and care. If it's a governor's visit, each district, as I know it, asks that the governor be introduced by reading a bio or an outline. That, in a sense, is an extension of protocol. Allowing the governor to be the only speaker at the venue is also a recognition of the value of the presence of the district governor. So each district endeavors to provide its clubs, I would hope, with the information required for the governor's visit, which should include enough information as to make the general audience at the club knowledgeable and comfortable with knowledge of the district governor and any other attendees that may be going with him or her. The international officer visits, at times outside of convention, some international officers may request to visit a cabinet meeting or request to visit a council meeting to make a presentation. It is important that at these special events or any other dinners that protocol be extended and defined and that order of precedence be applied to the introductions so as to respect the different levels within our organization. This is especially true at your convention. Now, one mention I'd like to say right now is that protocol need only be set at the beginning of a convention and not at every opportunity or every resumed event within the convention. It need be properly done so that then it can be established and that it covers all of the aspects that need to be covered at the beginning. If you have additional guests that arrive once protocol is set, it is not improper to make special note of those individuals, understanding that protocol has already been set. Institutions and their representatives, I've mentioned this before. If you have guests from other institutions, such as your local municipality or your federal, provincial, or state agencies or government, then it's really important to address these individuals and to present these individuals to your audience in an orderly and respectful fashion. Now we're going to move on to when to use protocol, and what we're going to do is we're going to discuss 4 of the different areas that protocol should be applied. And there are many other areas by which one could use protocol, such as how flags are presented, how the anthems are played, and some of these will be covered in here. But there are many other instances as well where an informal or formal protocol exists. I am reminded that when visiting the Queen of England, it is always important that the Queen speak to you first and not you to her, and that she be seated before you are. This is a protocol. It is a set of rules. I'm sure that in the White House or in our House of Parliament in Canada, there are those protocols. But let's face it, as Lions, we may or may not have that opportunity to be considered to visit the Queen, your President, or our Prime Minister. So let's just deal with these 4 particular ones for this evening. The first one is introductions, and we'll go to that at this time. All right. Lion Bud?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go to the next slide, which is introductions.
Oh,
okay.
hold on here.
Oh, no problem. Technical.
There. Here we go.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay. Lions Clubs International provides us an official order for the introduction of guests and for members of the organization. And special consideration should be given to those guest speakers and individuals whose attendance is also unexpected. And then it says, and welcome, a little smiley face. Special consideration should always be given to individuals whose attendance is unexpected and possibly out of the standard audience. It's always important that members feel comfortable that the guests that are there are introduced so as to make them feel part of the family. So having said that, let's go to the next page and speak to a few things regarding introductions. The one before that, please. Right there. Thank you. The head table should be introduced following that of the official order. Now, this is very situation dependent, but we find ourselves in a situation at times where the protocol is set and the names are repeated once again for the head table. This is quite appropriate. However, maybe a time lag in between is also appropriate. An example of that would be to set protocol at the beginning of the meeting, identifying those in attendance, and subsequently, following, say, dinner, then the head table would be introduced in an official order as well. You need to seek clarity regarding the background for any guests that you are unfamiliar with. Now, one thing that happens a lot is that individuals ask to visit or to attend to many of the more formal functions in both district and in multiple district events. And it is not always possible for a person responsible to either set protocol or recognize individuals to know everyone. And that is where individuals such as your past district governors, past international directors, or other informed Lions in your district or multiple are a true asset, because they will likely have an understanding of who the person is or any of the people that need to be mentioned that you may not have noticed. So it's important to use those resources being at hand in order that you may find yourself not in an embarrassing situation. So let's now move on to review the 2 handouts that have been provided to you. The first one is Lions Clubs International's official order of precedence. Thank you, Lion Bud. This document is available on Lions Clubs International website, and I've taken and extracted a portion of the document from which this is from. The order of precedence is the order by which, when setting protocol, an individual should attempt to identify those individuals in attendance. As you can see, some of it seems fairly straightforward, but others may not be so obvious. If we take a look and take an example, as we go down here, your typical district convention may involve an international president, more likely a past international officer, whether a director or a president. You're likely to have your chairperson, council of governors, your district governor, various other executive administrators, past council chairs. What is interesting here is that the order as it is defined may not be what you might believe it would be. Let's just take an example here as item 16. If we take a look at this and we look that we have our past council chairpersons, followed by the immediate past district governor in item 15, and then the multiple district chairpersons and coordinators come ahead of your own first and second vice district governors. Now, this is Lions Clubs International official order of precedence. And it has been analyzed and it has been positioned based on those responsibilities and the likely characteristics of the individuals that hold these positions, such that multiple district chairpersons and coordinators, especially such as your Lions Clubs International Foundation, GMT and GLT, are likely to be past district governors in their own right, or past international directors, or individuals that have been Lions Clubs International officers in the past. You can massage some of these, but the fact is that recognizing what is being stated here and how that fits within your venue and in your area is really what is paramount. If we take a look at in here, there are many individuals that are quite unlikely to be attending many, if not any, of your own district activities. Also, there's a general recognition that at a certain point, when you get to past club presidents, especially in the case of a cabinet meeting with 200 people in attendance, it may be an idea to consider summarizing by category and not as individuals, those individuals that are below, say, a certain point on this particular order of precedence. Now, I will not give you my personal opinion as to where I think that should be. It's usually defined, or it's usually appropriate based on the venue, based on whether this is a district or multiple district event, and how should I say, if it's a district convention, then it is truly appropriate to recognize the individuals attached to many of these levels. If it happens to be a gathering at a joint zone or a zone meeting, and you wish to recognize those individuals, then club secretaries, treasurers, current club presidents, introduced as individuals or as groups, are the option. Now, if we take a look at this order of precedence, there are many instances in here where I would have to state that in the majority of your venues, there will be gaps. And you could go down through this list and seek out multiple district secretaries and multiple district secretary staff, and honestly, it is a rare occurrence that you would find that within your districts. Now, I speak that from my experience in various other districts in southwestern Ontario. So what I would like to do right now is go down this sheet a little further so that we can look at the explanation of certain notes that are here, and then I'll introduce you to a tool that I created called my protocol cheat sheet. But we're going to look at this first. First of all, if we take a look at the various notes, the one that comes to mind is the one with 2 asterisks stating single, sub, and multiple district constitutional bylaws or local customs and practice may alter the order of precedence. Now, they suggest that the orders of precedence are based on 4, 5, 6, 14 through 31. It's like I said, essentially the summarization is considered a local norm, or a what is it called, a local custom and practice. So those are things that through observation you will recognize as to whether it's appropriate for both the venue and for your locale. Now let's take a look at the explanation of notes. When in doubt, it has been acceptable in many districts to recognize individuals based on an alphabetical order sequence. However, when it is individuals of the same level that are in offices of, say, past international director or above, it is important to consider option B, which is that the most recently one who has served is given precedence, and so on. We in District A15 adhere to that option when possible. And again, when more than one is present, especially with international directors that may have served in the same year, then one would fall back to the Roman alphabetic order of the first letter of the fully used family name, which is essentially the alphabetical order based on last name. There are a few further comments, and I'll leave that for you to read and understand. This essentially summarizes the order of precedence in setting protocol and in recognizing and respecting the individuals that are in attendance at your venue. Now, at this time, I'd like to turn to our Excel cheat sheet. Now, this is something that I developed, and sometimes it's important that we be honest and generous with our experiences. The reason that this document exists, quite frankly, is that on one occasion at our club's 35th anniversary, I was called to MC the event. And at the time, because of the excitement and because of all that was going on, I had the great opportunity to not mention our district governor nor our past international directors at the venue. Nobody complained. People are, generally speaking, liberal with their praise and careful with their criticism. However, myself being who I am, never did live it down. And so what I am saying to myself is I need a tool. So I devised a spreadsheet, and every year I will put in the names of individuals that I expect will be in attendance or potentially be in attendance at both district or zone activities. The order of protocol here is generally in accordance with Lions Club's International Order of Precedence. Item 3A, international guest, as the situation suits. This would be for a convention, is 3A, not because that is where it goes. Where it goes is dependent on the individual that presents themselves as international guest. I was fortunate to have as my international guest a past international president, and I assure you he was at the very top of the list. But what this cheat sheet lets you do is pre-plan. It asks that you put in all of the names of your past international directors within your district, any Council of Governors chairpeople in an alphabetical order from previous years, the past council chairpersons. If we scroll down a little bit, we'll see the immediate past district governor, followed by the first vice, second vice. Then we have in our midst a Lion who was governor back in the 1960s and is deemed an international counselor and is recognized as such prior to the recognition of all of our past district governors. Now, you notice in shaded it says, for more, use the reverse side of the page. And what I have typically done is I've itemized the list of past district governors in years, in the order of the years served, in reverse chronological order, so most recent to eldest statesman. Then we have our district secretary, treasurer, region chairpersons, zone chair people. The region chair people and the zone chairs are grouped by their own zones. And then we have past deputy district governors from a previous time, as well as others. And I like to stay at this point that it says immediate past zone chair. I try to recognize the immediate past region and zone chair individuals, because if they are no longer a part of the cabinet, which would be in lines ahead, and by the way, I apologize for the ordered problem here, 16, 14, 15. I try to recognize them because their term would have been very recent, and I think that it's a sign of respect to recognize those individuals. So you now have this spreadsheet. You may adjust it at will, but I would suggest that from this you go away and enter all of the names of the people that fit in your own districts. Print a copy. If you are asked to set protocol, take that copy, and all you do is cross off the names of the individuals who are not in attendance, and when asked to set protocol, you have it right before you. I have found it very efficient and effective, and I hope you will find it as well. All right, let's proceed on now onto the next topic. And that would be regarding flags and banners. Now, in Canada, we take the protocol for the setting of flags and the position of flags to follow that of the order set by our Legion, which is our armed forces legionnaires. And what we do is we try to recognize the order by the prominence of the flag in the venue. So when there's no center position available, and before I begin, I'd like to state that this is like in the theater, that all references left and right are defined facing the audience. So as you face the flags, you may notice that the flag with most prominence is actually on the left, but that would be in the center right position, closest to the center, but on the right. The next flag in prominence is placed to the immediate left of the previous flag. And all of the remaining flags are placed in their order of prominence, alternating from right to left. That is with no center position available. Now I'd like to heighten one other factor. Planning for the display of flags and banners is an extremely important aspect, and I would recommend that you take inventory and that you recognize that the flags that you have to be displayed at your venue should be both displayed in the order of their prominence, but also that they should either be of the same height. Well, let's just say, generally speaking, they should be all of the same height, unless one flag is obviously meant to be dominant amongst the others. If we could go to the next slide, we're going to look at what happens with flags when there is a center position available. The flag with the highest prominence is placed in the center, then the next is placed at the immediate right of the center, then the next flag, if necessary, is placed to the immediate left of the center flag, and then alternate from that point. Now, flags should be presented in the order that in either the order that they will be placed by their prominence or in the reverse order. So in a sense, one could present the flag of Lions Clubs International first, followed by the flag of the United States of America, then followed by, say, the flag of Canada, when a guest from Canada may be visiting amongst your organization or your club or your district, and so on. Or the reverse, depending on what is the applicable norm in your particular venue. If you do not know, And if you have been placed responsible for establishing this order, then again, use the resources at hand, and that would be your knowledgeable individuals amongst your experienced lions. Okay, let's proceed on to the next slide. So essentially, what defines prominence? Well, usually it's the flag that's most closely associated with the institution that's being recognized at the event. In other words, if this is a district convention, it may be a district flag. If it is a multiple district convention and there is a multiple district flag, then it may have prominence, followed by likely the flag of the country in which the event is located. There may be instances that this is a state event, such as some of you have multiple districts that are essentially a state is a multiple district. And if so, the flag of the state may be the next in prominence after the country or before. This is all based on local norms, and I really can't give you the magic bullet on this one. It's something that you should share and discuss with people in your environment, in your district, and in your community. The flag of the visiting dignitary or dignitaries may be presented next. Now, that is very important. Every effort should be made to have at hand the flag of a visiting dignitary when that visit is known. Now, some say, well, we don't know where we're going to get a flag, say for Honduras or Mexico or Holland or the Netherlands. One of the resources that we have found very valuable in our districts in Multiple District A is the Youth Exchange, which typically presents the flags of the nations of the youth attending. So if we don't have it, we have been able to be rather successful in getting the flags or borrowing them from our youth exchange programs. Local flags and government institutions should also be displayed by the prominence of the individuals attending, if they're available. We're going to touch on banners ever so briefly, and that's the next slide, and it basically indicates that it's usually based on the established norms that are in your community, in your district. Club banners and zone banners should also be given care not to provide any prominence for one banner over another of equal standing. If banners are presented at your event or at convention and they are to be hung, then it is generally best to hang them randomly than in any particular order, aside from those of possibly your own district. Banners should be retired in the reverse order they were presented or left to be collected post-proceedings. So there is either a formal process or that they will be collected by the people who brought them at the closing of the proceedings. Let's go on to seating. Okay, seating is another area that always seems to put a little bit of confusion. It is not something that is terribly difficult to work with, and it's just necessary to understand the relevance of protocol in terms of seating arrangements. Lions Clubs International provides a general seating plan, and now we're going to go back to that handout, the very same handout that had the order of precedence. And what that handout also has in the second part is about seating arrangements.
Oops.
Now, that's perfect. Thank you. Oh, there we go.
There it is. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the head table seating arrangements. Generally speaking, your individuals, the person that is in charge, the person that is a chairperson of the event, is usually center seated at the table. If there is a center position, in effect an odd number of seats, then as you can see, facing the audience, the person is seated centrally, and the person who is either the guest or another individual that is also next in order of precedence, if you will, and according to protocol, would be seated in position 2. Now, if 2 is the spouse of 3, please ensure that you do not place the spouse across from 1. Spouses should be placed, or partners, should be placed next to the guest that is attending. An example of this would be that if I was the chairperson of a meeting, and I was seated at seat number 1, then at seat number 2 would be, say, my guest that would be doing a presentation, and to the right of him, his spouse. To my left would be my spouse. And then we would follow that, if appropriate, with 4, 5, 6, and 7. Always keeping partners and spouses together. Now, if we go down a little bit, we're going to deal with a situation where the table is set and we have an even number of seatings. Then it is likely that there is a podium in the placement at the head table. If a podium is placed, the person that is chairing the event, generally speaks, sits to the left of the podium, and the guest, in highest precedence, sits to the right of the podium. It's my preference that, and I'll point this out a little later, that podiums be used, central podiums be used at a minimum. This is appropriate in many venues, but at times it may be more appropriate to introduce the podium before the presentation and not at the time that the guests are gathering for the dinner. It tends to interfere with general conversation that seems to be something quite important between the person that is directing the meeting and the person that is there to present. And the podium, to be honest, gets in the way. So if there is an opportunity, please consider putting the podium at one end of the table or the other. This would be done so that the Master of Ceremonies could address the audience from a different location and that the guests at the head table could socialize and feel much more comfortable in that particular environment. Let's go down a little bit further, and it speaks about local customs should be the rule. Again, take that into consideration and use your knowledgeable members to help you and assist you. Now, if we take a look at the head table instructions, when spouses are present at the head table, they should be introduced with the member. That is part of the protocol of introducing the head table. Another area very important is that if you have multiple head tables, please take care not to seat lions of the same rank at different tables if possible. It tends to imply a certain priority or precedence that you don't want to apply in the circumstance. Now we're going to go back to the slide where we were speaking about the head table, and you can use this document as a guide as I indicated. So now we're going to go to the PowerPoint on seating. And now, as you notice, I suggested that local norms and the characteristics of the event usually suggest who is going to be seated at the head table. Now, we all know there's so much variation and there's so many different permutations that we really can't give you a clear and definite line. It is usually important that the person directing the meeting, as well as any of your guests with an intention to present or speak, be considered for your head table, and also the order of precedence for setting protocol may also have an influence on that decision. Now, certain customs and hints. On to the next slide, we have a few hints. This is an old custom, and you know, it's something that I really believe works very well. And that is, despite the fact that we are a gender-neutral organization, there's a certain amount of chivalry, if you will, that I always try to extend, and that is seating no woman alone at the end of the table. I find that it makes a very comfortable head table to have a lady possibly having the opportunity to speak with another woman next to her, and if there is a possibility, then this should be attempted. If you have all women except for one person, the choice is obvious. It won't matter. If the podium is centered to the table, ensure it doesn't obscure the view during the dinner portion. There are many times I have been at occasions where people are struggling to see a presentation or a speaker or a question from the audience because the podium is in the way. So plan to bring it out when it's appropriate. Also, ensure individuals of the same rank are either all at the head table or none are. Guest speaker accepted. So should you have an international director or past international director or past district governor as your guest speaker, it wouldn't be necessary to seat all of your past district governors at a head table. Consider place cards to remove confusion. Too often people say, where do you want me to sit? And too often it's difficult to actually make that call. So with place cards, you will know in advance where you want people to sit and whether the seating arrangements are going to work out and be appropriate. Okay? Now let's turn to the international guest. Annually, our districts entertain international guests and welcome them. And what I'd like to say here, and I'm going to go through this rather quickly because you will have the opportunity to review this. I believe the PowerPoint presentation will be available for your review, and you can pause it at that time. But it's very important that there's 4 phases, essentially, about how to handle and apply proper courtesy and protocol for your international guest. First one is in advance of the visit. You're going to provide as much information as possible to the actual guest. The more they know in advance, the more you can iron out situations. You're going to provide an agenda of the proceedings. If it's possible, you may take the time to discuss those points with you prior to them coming to your occasion. Discuss any special awards and presentations. You're going to establish technical needs in advance. It is very important because it is very embarrassing to not have those technical requirements at hand when your guest is expecting them for their presentation and for their message. And that, if budget allows, encourage the guest to arrive the day before the event. That will give you an opportunity to meet and discuss the event as it approaches. Provide local weather dress requirements. This is highly important because of the nature of the climate in North America. It varies, and that's a very important area to cover. On arrival, make sure you provide the guest with an official aide. If there is a spouse, make sure you provide 2 individuals as aides to this guest. Meet the guest at the arrival location, whether that be the airport, train station, or by vehicle. And if accompanied, enlist that additional person, as I pointed out. Provide translation services if possible. Many district governors that come from and hail from Quebec, they may have an understanding and a working knowledge of the English language, but maybe their spouses do not. And therefore, it's always a good idea to try to find somebody to provide translation. Also, review their personal preference sheet from Lions Clubs International and prepare them a welcome package for their review on arrival. During the stay, make sure you consult with the guests regarding their preferences, where they would like to present. Some districts ask for presentations to be made at the luncheon, others at the banquet. Ensure that you consult with them, and please consider their preference. Provide for some free time. As a host, you have to ensure there's no conflicting responsibilities. As a host or a protocol aide, you are deemed to be there for their stay. Hold a short meeting before, during, and after to review your guests' impressions and needs. Don't make any assumptions that what goes well the Friday night is still going well on the Saturday afternoon. Discuss a general outline of their presentation and address any concerns, because there are times where the presentation from your guest may be, this is a strong word, but it might be in conflict with something that's going on within your own area. And it is more important for the international guest to recognize that in advance than otherwise be discussed after. At the banquet, for the main presentation, please ask for one major address. Although many guests will volunteer to address the audience at different times, please only ask for one major address. Inform your guests of all those presentations and the words that you're going to be giving, and ensure that the international recognitions, such as certificates of appreciation and or leadership awards or medals and international medals, be performed by or with the international guest. And provide as much information about the award recipients in advance. Provide a suitable gift for the guests and their partner. And lastly, departure. Always attend to your guest's departure. Ensure your guests are escorted from the hotel back to the airport, train station, or where they arrived originally. Ask your aide to ensure that your guest's flight is leaving on time, and if there is a serious delay, then advise your aide to assist with any layover plans. These matters can be dealt with, the finances of them can be dealt with later. So additionally, I'd like to state that I'm going to ask you that whenever you have international guests or anyone else in attendance, as part of protocol and courtesy, treat your guests as you would a family member or a close friend. Ask yourself, how would I wish to be treated? And a good thought is to remember to follow up with a personal thank you note a few days after their return. This is a courtesy that is not often extended, but it is something that is quite appreciated. So I know we've rushed through a lot of this and we've covered a few areas, and I know that there are many areas otherwise. But I think if we take a review of our objectives at this time, we could look and say that we've provided a reference for both the formal and informal, recognition of local norms, as well as those order of precedence as defined by Lions Clubs International. We provided you some resources, such as the spreadsheet. I call it the cheat sheet. I think it's an appropriate document, and it will make your life a whole lot easier. I encourage you, as I did throughout, to use protocol as expressing the recognition and the respect that you have for all of your guests, your members, and anyone in attendance, and to allow for those local norms to be reflected in the application of protocol. If you are questioned about the applicable aspects of how protocol was executed, then remember that they're only trying to generally improve your ability to present protocol and to extend courtesy properly. I would like to close now by suggesting that protocol, as I stated before, is an art and a science. And we only scratch the surface here. And we need to consider and extend as members of this organization the protocol where appropriate. I've seen it done well, and I've experienced protocol done, well, just downright bad. And I think that you should always consider extending a courteous and respectful hand to those who have come before and to those who should be appreciated. So by doing this, and for people who attended tonight especially, you will be executing and understanding the rules and systems of protocol, and you'll reflect the honorable nature of the individuals in Lions Clubs International. So I hope I've given you some direction and guidance, and at this time I turn it over to Lion Bud. Thank you.
Lion Denny, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation on protocol. And I'm going to call, before we close out, I'm going to call on Wendy to see if she has any questions or comments that might have come up during the presentation in the questions pane. Wendy, do you have any of those you want to share at this time?
Just a couple of quick ones, and thank you, Lion Denny, because I know I personally have a lot of questions, and there's a lot of confusion around protocol, how much, too much, and so some really great resources and information that you provided during our course and webinar this evening. One of the questions that, let's see, Lion AJ asked, and I'm going to word this probably a little bit differently, but when you're invited to induct a new member or conduct officer installation for a club, is that a case to use the formal protocol for introductions, or if you're invited up as a kind of an external presenter or speaker for just that particular portion as part of the business meeting, is that too much, or what's your experience with that?
My experience is that individuals that present themselves to do inductions expect to be recognized only lightly, if you will, because they will have been called on because they're familiar, likely, to the club. And because there's a familiarity, any kind of heightened extension of protocol will seem to be somewhat, well, a little overdone. So typically we leave it to the person that is doing the induction to recognize the leadership in the audience at the time they do the induction, but for themselves we introduce them by their title, respecting the fact that we have chosen them to perform the induction, but we don't dwell on an official recognition in terms of order of precedence and recognizing all of the members within the particular club or in attendance.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question that was asked has to do, and this goes with the seating aspect, and for a district governor that comes to visit your club, do you have any suggestions or thoughts if the district governor does not wish to sit at the club's head table?
Oh, well, that's a good one. Typically, if the district governor is there for their official visit, they'll likely want to sit at the head table, and then they should be seated to the right of the club president or whoever is officiating the meeting. If the district governor is visiting in an unofficial capacity, then I believe that that request should be recognized and acknowledged. And I think that it would be appropriate at that time then to appropriately recognize the district governor through introductions, but there's no need to, well, the word enforce is a little strong, but to impose seating arrangements on a visiting dignitary.
All right, thank you. I had one or two more comments come in. Give me just a moment. Lion Leanne had asked if the protocol should be followed at all Lions venues or only at conventions, and kind of the combination of your introductions, the flags, and your guests, and kind of the head table seating. You talked about some scenarios where the protocol would be most appropriate. Can you highlight just the key points of those again?
I think within a district convention, because it's the gatherings, both the celebration and an official gathering for the execution of district business, I think it's very important that both protocol be set in a very formal fashion if possible, as well as the presentation of the flags, the anthems, and things like that. However, when you start looking at it in terms of zone meetings and or other opportunities for the Lions to gather, then you make a call as to whether it's appropriate to, it's difficult, each circumstance is difficult, but you tend to summarize earlier amongst your list of dignitaries where the venues are either smaller or more local, if you understand what I'm trying to say. If you're having a district convention or another district cabinet meeting, then it tends to be important to recognize and using the order of precedence and applying proper protocol. It's a venue by which people from all points of the district or multiple will be gathering, and it's at that time that I think you use your cheat sheet and you show them how much of a protocol pro you really are.
All right, thank you. Just one more question Lion Kendra asked, that if you're asked to host an official visit then by the district governor, usually the district governor is a speaker, but is there a certain protocol, or is this unique to the districts and or the governors regarding whether they are the only speaker for an event?
It tends to be generalized that the district governor is the only speaker for the official visit to the club, as well as that courtesy is usually extended to zone chair visits when they make official visits to the club. However, sometimes the club will bring another speaker to heighten some of the characteristics and the message that the zone has been promoting. So that's fine. I think we all understand that the district governor doesn't typically pay for their meal. They may bring some guests, and it's a discretion of the club as to whether certain costs are incurred by his entourage. But generally speaking, No, the district governor is the only one to speak at the district official visit. And that would be extended to the first, second vice, or any other individual that is acting in that capacity, as we have seen the sharing of that role over time.
Great. There are a couple others that I'm just responding to privately, but I think those are ones that were of benefit to the group with us today, as well as for recording purposes. So thanks again for your perspectives.
May I ask something? May I ask something?
Sure.
I'm not aware at this point as to whether we'll be able to provide other handouts or materials, but I do have the official announcement that is sent to each club about the governor's visit, outlining what is appropriate and what is not, and what protocol is appropriate and what is not. And I was wondering if maybe I could forward that to you and we could attach it as part of those handouts that unfortunately is not there for this evening.
Yeah, we should be able to do that. I don't think there's a problem with that. We can, you send it to me and I will put it on your course page probably in the morning. Or as soon as
Thank
I
you.
can. Okay.
Absolutely. It'll be a nice additional resource for our Lions University members. So thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Denny. And thank you, Wendy, for including some of those questions and comments and taking care of answering some of those on the side too. We really appreciate that. And we'll move on and to try to close out and get everybody out of here on time. I'd like to encourage everyone to, if you have further conversation, go on to the Lions Forum website, lionsforum.org, and click on the discussion board and find this particular course to go ahead and continue any discussion that you might have with the subject of protocol. I will remind you that we of the next two webinars coming up. Our one next week is Club Governance. That's a bachelor's course, Course 106, a required course, and that again is Tuesday, May 12th, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And the following week, on May 19th, we will have Public Speaking, which is a master's elective course. That is on the 19th, and again, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can register for either one of those courses on the lionsuniversity.org calendar page, which is shown at the bottom of that page. Also like to remind you that you can take the quiz for protocol immediately. You can go on to the course page and click on the quiz and go ahead and take that, and you'll be ready to go, and hopefully you'll, with the use of the handouts that we've had this evening and incorporated those into the slide presentation, there shouldn't be any problem. I've already looked at the quiz, and Lion Denny did a good job putting things together and covered everything that was on the presentation. So I'd like to remind you to do that, and you'll get your results immediately. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone again for attending this evening, and thank you again to Lion Denny for a very, very good and informative webinar. And as you log out of the webinar, please make sure you go up to the top of your file box on the right-hand side of your screen and click on that file box and go ahead and log out, click out, so that you can be taken out of the course, and we can get everyone out in a timely fashion. So with that, I'd like to thank you again and hope to see you again in the near future at another Lions University course. Thank you very much.